Welcome everyone to the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pickering. That's right, Lo-Fi as in low fidelity, low quality, in your face, messy as can be global news show. Here we're going to talk about that famous question, what's going on in the world today? It's Thursday, time for that Lo-Fi global news, fresh off that press. Coming at us from that Europe section of the BBC. Belarus jails Belsat TV journalist for filming protest. All right, let me set this one up for you people. Two journalists live streaming an unauthorized protest in November that worked for the Belsat TV, which is owned by individuals from Poland. These two journalists were arrested, charged with fomenting protest, and now sentenced to 2 years in prison. 2 years for live streaming a protest, when you're a journalist, no less. Well, I suppose if any of us were wondering what's the state of freedom of the press in Belarus, this case most certainly updates our perspective. People of Belarus, we're still with you. Ain't nobody forgot about you. Next up, source, the world of Reuters. UK and Canada impose sanctions on Myanmar generals after coup. These new sanctions, they include freezing top military officials' international assets, as well as travel bans, and are just the latest in the international community's response to the military coup in Myanmar. And the protests, well, they're still going strong. But the military is coming out in force, and over the weekend and the past week, the military have mobilized armored vehicles, especially in metropolitan areas. They've begun using rubber bullets and high-pressure water cannons on protesters, and even more unconfirmed cases of using live munitions on protesters as well. And plus over the last week, the military has started arresting a lot more members of the democratically elected government. Things have been getting tough for the people of Myanmar, and they're likely only going to get tougher. So keep your eyes open and ears to the ground, Lo-Fi Nation. And people of Myanmar, we're still with you as well. Now moving forward, because we never move on from anything. Source, Associated Press, World News section. China steps up online controls with new rules for bloggers. And if you thought things were tough for internet users in China before, well, wait until you hear this. The story. The Cyberspace Administration of the Chinese government. Not a bad name, but you get no cool points from us. Well, they have new rules going down. Likely in response to the Clubhouse app that's been increasing free speech in audio chat rooms in China, and now is even being used in Thailand with talk about the monarchy. But starting next week in China, all influencers and bloggers will have to get government-certified license in order to publish or talk about any of the following areas: judicial or court topics, education topics, economics topics, health topics, and previously you already had to get approval to talk about military or political topics. Think about that, Lo-Fi Nation. Politics, courts, economics, health, government, military. What does that leave that you can talk about without needing to be licensed by the Chinese government? Sports and entertainment? And sports is entertainment, so really it just means you can talk about entertainment freely. All else, you need government permission. In short, no news without permission. A topic we'll come back to in a minute. And our following story comes from the Latin America section of the BBC. Ecuador election. Tension rises over delayed results. And to paraphrase the article here, it's been 11 days since the election. We know the first candidate to go to the runoff is Mr. Oraz, but the two candidates competing to reach the runoff with him have both requested recounts, and that was underway, but now is stopped for reasons? The Electoral Commission did give reasons, stating that they were unsure if they should grant or do a complete countrywide recount, but in their limbo and indecisiveness, protests have started, calling for quicker and more transparent recounts to take place. Keep your eyes on this one too, listeners. And a last piece of news to send you on your way for the day. A story to make you think today and reflect about how we interact with the world around us. Source, the technology section of NPR. Facebook blocks news in Australia over government plan to force payment to publishers. All right, let's dig into it. Facebook versus the country of Australia. So the Australian government has already partially passed a piece of legislation that would force Facebook to essentially pay Australian news companies for their content that Facebook already puts on their website. And if you guess, Facebook doesn't like this idea. Australian news companies, for their part, especially the ones that are market-based and that need revenue to continue the production of news for general population consumption, well, they say it's about time. Facebook has been profiting off of their content. And at that same time, that profiting has been hurting these publishers' revenue streams. Facebook says shenanigans, they don't make much money off of it. I would be interested to see how Facebook defines much money. Because a small news company could think a certain amount of money is, in fact, a lot of money, whereas Facebook could consider that same amount of money as not much money. The point is, this law is pretty close to getting passed, and Facebook made a preemptive move. They removed all Australian news content from Australian Facebook pages. And I do mean all. Even government and charity sites were taken down, though Facebook did apologize and say they will rectify this, but they blamed the Australian government for it. In short, Facebook is showing Australia what will happen if this law passes. And the Australian government tries to force Facebook to pay for news. This may really be the new reality for Australian Facebook users. And the Australian government, and more importantly, the people of Australia, they were not amused when they woke up to this taking place. And in fact, democracies across the world are not amused with Facebook at the moment. But what does this all really mean for Australian users? It means they can't access any news sites from Australian sources on the platform. And it means users also cannot cut and paste Australian news sources into their feeds. And really, I suppose a lot of this has to do with how do you use Facebook? And a lot of it has to do with how much power does Facebook have? And I think that the answer to that question is really wrapped up in one question to you. How much power do you give Facebook? Because let's be real, Facebook as a corporation is only as powerful as it is successful. And they're only as successful as their users, as you make them. And let's have some more real talk. Social media corporations are not about technology creating a platform for free speech and connecting the people of the world. That line, that slogan, has been around since the beginning of the net. It's not true. Regularly, when Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google are pushed by authoritarian governments to take down content or face being blacklisted from the country's internet completely, well, the company's mantra about free speech and innovation through technology goes completely out the window. An example, you say? Sure. A few months ago, we talked about how in Thailand, during the mass protests that are still going on, by the way, against the country's leader and the monarchy, the Thai government demanded Facebook take down several pro-democracy and pro-protesters' pages, in particular one that had over 1 million Thai followers. Anyone want to guess what Facebook did? You don't need a 5 count. You already know they took down that page and silenced over 1 million voices just to keep their market safe in an authoritarian country. They silenced free speech for $1. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook also did this again in Thailand over videos of the king walking in a mall wearing a crop top because it started trending, and the military and government did not like that. And Thailand's not the only country, and these are not the only cases of social media companies demonstrating the bottom line is the dollar, not protecting the values of democracy or connecting the free speech of peoples around the world. And Australia, and the people of Australia, well, they have a choice before them. And I am most certainly anxious to see what they do with that choice. Because remember, these companies are only as powerful as they are successful, and they are only as successful as their users make them. You are their users. How much power do you give them? I am most certainly anxious to see what you do with your choice. And that's a brief snapshot of what's going on in the world today. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode of Good News Friday. Always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's the we that we be. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, wash those hands, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. Pickering, signing off.